Hey everybody, just looking at the solar wind profiles. We're getting some bizarre readings off the Fredericksburg magnetosphere measurements. Huge geomagnetic storms being registered on just one detector. But if you notice the speed and densities, look at the flux. I mean, up and down, pretty regular pulsations. And then you go over to the Fredericksburg, you see the purple. I mean, those are geomagnetic storms that are being registered off the scale. They're off the charts. Now, we were worried about this day coming as we approach solar max with our particles having reached maximum concentrations within the solar system. Add to that, the solar particles are in solar maximum, and we could be getting a lot of activity. But remember, the spiral wind opens up to that incoming wind, lets particles in, and then as the spiral wind swings through like a fan blade, resists those particles, and then opens up, and then lets it in, and then opens up. So then what we should see is regular pulsations of particles coming in, pulsating in speed, density, and even temperature. So, and that's what we see. We see a pretty uniform mixing there for quite some time, almost a harmonic-like mixing, which is pretty telling. As the spiral arms of the wind open up to the second source of particles, it lets in those particles. They're pulsing in almost at a regular interval, and which is very telling of the relationship between the sun's spiral and the inbound wind. Now we look at the weather, global weather, and here we're looking at the Caribbean, Cuba at the top. We see a mass of water just build up. I mean, that's what hurricanes look like. All of this water drifting north. We don't think that will turn into a hurricane. Generally, it's kind of late in the year. But we'll see. We'll see how it transpires. But we see huge areas of doldrums where there is no moisture, no clouds. At the top of your screen, you see something pushing down. That's a spiral. That's a vortex that's pushing southward. So we want to keep an eye on that and see what it does, where it goes. Does it meander? What does it, what direction will it go? You can see that spiral better now from the global picture. And I mean, there's a lot going on in the global picture, but to the right, you'll see another ghost system. And again, these systems are uniformly the same size and shape. They just vary in the amount of moisture that they contain. Again, look at Brazil, South America. We're seeing monsoons and thunderstorms pick up there. Brazil goes from heat to rain and heat to rain. Look along the west coast of South America. You see that black, it's spreading, that black color. That is extremely high heat. Very, very high heat. And it's just been spreading, it's been growing. And that's incredible heat, by the way. And we're just narrating these as they come up. That's Greenland at the top. Notice that spiral coming down from the upper left. That has a flat edge. It's almost starting to look like a stop sign with edges. And that shows you how a spiral, when it meets resistance, can become a hexagon or an octagon. And that's what's happened to the northern atmosphere of Saturn. It's turned into a hexagon or an octagon instead of a spherical weather system on Saturn. Now we look at the Pacific and you see that front moving down. This looks like a wave coming down, wiping water out of the way from the north to the south. That's actually an arm to the major spiral up there. It's bringing water into California, but it's not a lot of water. The system is fast moving, and it's not all that wet, so California's going to get a little bit of very much needed rain. You see in the middle of the screen, you see the equatorial belt is trying to reform again, and so be it. Now look over Texas. See that blue area? Believe it or not, that is a very powerful spiral with no water. It's ejecting water off the 5, 6 o'clock position, which is what spirals do. But behind it, it's mowing down all water, pushing water away. That's a ghost system. There's another one off the east coast, and that one again affecting really these jet streams. It really, so I mean we just have spirals everywhere now, and it reminds me of somebody juggling plates that are spinning. You got so many plates spinning. You see off to the left that plunging push that we were talking about, and again, that's going to clear out any water that's headed towards the United States. The spiral system that's creating that push, mows down water on the back side and bottom side, and then re-ejects it out the front side of the spiral. But all of this movement is being controlled by wheels on a conveyor belt, and these wheels line up, and they control all of our weather. If you could steer those wheels, you could place them anywhere you want. If you can control them, you can control the weather. And by creating high pressure and low pressure, that would be doable. Now look at Australia. The entire continent is dry. There's not a cloud or rain anywhere on the continent of Australia. The entire continent has no clouds over it, at least for now. And that's what these systems do. They can pull water up, or they can jet water out. Usually the 5, 6 o'clock position on these counterclockwise spirals are the source of much water. If that one of those parks over you, you're in trouble. Notice to the upper right that spherical system. That is a big system that we had tracked over a week ago, coming in from Alaska. What's it doing way over there in Europe? Still well organized. That's a little crazy for me, if you ask me. So then in recap, what we have is the Earth is going through a part of the solar system and the sun system where the spirals are opening up to the second wind and letting it in at a very pulsed frequency. And we see this mixing that's very, very obvious. But the Fredericksburg geomagnetic measurements are off the chart. And this is kind of the thing that we were predicting for 2023. We get solar maximum along with maximum particles. You're going to have maximum influence, maximum radiation, maximum electrons than we've ever seen in the history of planet Earth. And the weather systems have become so complicated that, to really understand and see the geoengineering, you really have to track these storms on a daily basis. And lately I've just been throwing some of these files up onto Patreon for people to download. Most people don't like the non-narrated stuff. They want to be told what they're looking at. But I'm just practicing. I'm trying to perfect that technique. We're still covering Planet X. We're still covering global depopulation. We're still covering pandemics as they come. But notice we are in an election month. So, all of the bad things are going to soften. The gas prices are going to hold down lower. We're not going to see inflation creep up until when? Till after the election. We're not going to see a whole lot of shootings. We're not going to see a whole lot of mass shootings. We're not going to see, I mean, that's going to trickle down. And then, of course, after the election, miraculously, all of that should pick up again. And we plan on covering all of that. But, you know, in the sense of time, it's very time consuming to make a video. Just to pull all of these weather satellites down and string them together to where they can upload as a single file onto Patreon without being too large to upload to Patreon. It's very, very time consuming. And people are feeling the pinch. People are feeling the economic pinch. Some people are upset with me because I do a really poor job of keeping things together, staying organized. And I've lost all my help. And so, yeah, I'm one of those guys that are also juggling things. And I'm dropping a few balls now and then. But, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're looking to be situated here in a few weeks. But the one thing I did want to shout out to was I've been looking at the food prices in California. I do want to say the major carriers have doubled their prices over the rest of the country, which is